Today we have a very special guest joining us, Marcelo Godoy. He joined Newmont in 2012, and during his tenure as VP of Resource Evaluation and Mine Planning, he developed numerous innovation programs, including a world-class ore body risk management system and SmartMine, one of Newmont's key innovation initiatives. Marcelo was appointed Newmont's Senior VP of Exploration in 2018 and has successfully integrated Goldcorp and Newmont's exploration functions to create the largest global exploration team in the gold mining industry, with an unmatched portfolio of exploration opportunities. Marcelo has extensive experience leading technical teams, improving organizational capability, and delivering value. He's a recognized thought leader in the fields of ore body modeling and mineral resource development, and we are really excited to have him join us on the rocks. Let's dive in. Well, Marcelo, thank you so much for coming on the rocks today. I know I just saw you earlier today in virtual reality, but it's great to chat with you here as well.
Yeah, great to be here.
And what are you drinking today? And
I'm
why?
drinking an iced Arizona tea.
Oh, you're being a responsible.
Well, it's the middle of my working day, Emily, so unfortunately.
Well, I'll take one for the team. What I've got today is actually it's a Florida straight bourbon by St. Augustine Distillery. Since we were doing our tour of an Australian mine this morning in Miami, I thought a Florida bourbon would be appropriate, and it's actually pretty darn good. It's made with Florida corn, right up there in St. Augustine. Again, the Florida straight bourbon. So I thought kind of on theme for the virtual reality experience.
Sounds good.
Cheers to your iced
Cheers.
tea. So Marcelo, tell me a little bit about how Newmont ended up with such a tremendous virtual reality data set and infrastructure. Like, how did that come about?
Sure. Look, the work we do in exploration, Emily, makes intense use of 3D modeling and visualization, as you know. So we had been monitoring advances in VR technology for quite a few years. We already knew for a fact that through advanced visualization, you can have key insights regarding ore body morphology, structural setting, mineralization controls. So we start investigating virtual reality when the technology became more accessible, actually. That was in 2016 when consumer VR headsets became widely available here in the US. So we had two main hypotheses we wanted to test at the time. First, that VR could be used to illustrate big data and leverage our brain's perception of scale that we cannot replicate on 2D screens. Second, that we could cost effectively deploy open source software across Newmont. And you have experienced yourself this morning. VR provides a unique way for us to interact with our drilling data, geological models, mine designs. And in addition, VR allows us to go into places and have perspectives that are physically impossible to access in the real world. So I guess summarizing, at Newmont, we believe that the ability to visualize huge amounts of data at real world scale really enhances our ability to recognize mineralization patterns and therefore make better exploration decisions. So at the time, the traditional mining software providers were not really interested in including VR into their development roadmaps. So we decided to partner with Kitware to bring this technology into a place where it could be effectively used for exploration, mining, etc. So Kitware develops ParaView, an open source, multi-platform, high-performance data analysis and visualization software. And our partnership has been going for 5 years. A lot of work has been going into the system we had actually, and it's open source, so any of your listeners here can go and download ParaView and experience virtual reality in their models.
That's really cool. And I would imagine that you learned a lot of lessons along the way and had a few surprises as you started working with this new technology.
Absolutely, and one of the things that has surprised us about this journey was how much data we have at Newmont. With 100 years of
Mm,
history, we have so much data in our archives that's really hard to put your head um, around it. We've been digitizing paper-based information for the last 16 years,
wow.
non-stop. So the material has been scanned, run through OCR, and georeferenced. The good news is that this job is about to end, to finish pretty soon. So we are pretty pumped about that. The other interesting learning is that the data analytics offerings out there are still very, very basic. There is a
Mm,
general lack of understanding about the problems that are specific to mining and exploration. And I think it's
yeah.
a steep learning curve for technology companies. I believe subject matter experts need to be leading this digital transformation, otherwise, you're just not going to move forward.
Yeah, because there's a big difference in building a really cool tool, software, gizmo, whatever it is, and building one that's actually useful for the people that need it to work. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the things I was struck by, and our listeners will hear when they're hearing or watching the VR tour, is the immense potential of virtual reality as a collaboration tool. And just in the nature of this industry, where, especially over the last year and a half, you have people geographically distributed, where now you can get the best minds in the mine for whatever you're looking at, no matter where they are.
Absolutely. So the latest development, which we are very excited about, and that you had the opportunity to experience earlier today, is the multiplayer functionality. It allows multiple geoscientists to enter into this collaborative VR section where they can interact and work together, interrogating the model, reviewing key features, inspecting drill plans and drill core, identifying new target areas for drilling, and so much more. So the technology allows managers, subject matter experts, and project geologists to interact in this virtual environment, which vastly reduces travel time and costs as well. So collaboration in VR is quick and easy, and it's much easier and more effective to organize an underground tour in VR than in one of our operations.
Yeah.
And another change that we see is related to safety training. Last year, we developed a safety training program in VR with Immersive Technologies, a company based in Perth, which allows our geos and technicians to understand hazardous situations around drill rigs without leaving
Mhm.
the safety of the office. So when they go to the field, after the training, they have the knowledge to identify and rectify hazards to ensure critical controls are effective. And that's a very effective way of training our geologists.
Well, and I would say from a safety perspective, it was pretty neat to drive from where I live in kind of the Fort Lauderdale area down to a Miami office to get a tour of a mine in Australia and do it in heels, right? I mean, it's the only mine tour I've ever been able to do without putting on a whole lot of reflective and lots of boots and everything. So I think it's a different mind shift also in terms of accessibility, right? For shareholders, for stakeholders, and I know you see a lot of potential. Maybe it's not at people's fingertips right now, but the potential is there for people to be able to go and see inside of the deposit, inside of the mine, where their money is being put at work, right?
Absolutely. VR has proven to be a very powerful communication tool to showcase operations or projects and operations to stakeholders like investors, analysts, and board members. We first demonstrated the functionality to our board in 2016 as part of the full funds approval of the Subika underground project. So before approving that project, board members had the opportunity to walk through the project and understand the infrastructure and all the requirements to get the mine going. Then soon after that, at the BMO conference in 2017, we led analysts and investors through tour of our mines, and since then we have taken a lot of people in VR tools of our minds, and hopefully inspired some of the next generation to pursue
Yeah.
a career in exploration and mining. But you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. Like we believe that visualization technology can facilitate transparency and communication with stakeholders, and that's because it makes accurate data readily accessible. And important
Yeah.
factors for mining, such as continuity of demineralization, can be easily conveyed in a 3D model. And unless you are just a statistician, Emily, it's not very straightforward to access mineralization continuity from a spreadsheet.
Yeah. Well, and even in, attending a lot of virtual mining conferences over the last year and a half, even just hearing presentations, right? Because there is a difference, even if you're listening to a person like yourself or Richard giving the tour, you're looking at the data yourself, which I think it just gives a different level of trust as opposed to looking at a PowerPoint slide, maybe with analysis and just one view, right? Where you're inherently wondering, well, what else is there? What can I see? When you're allowed to basically go in and play around in the rocks and see everything. I mean, what they'll see in the tour is the drilling results, the infrastructure, the stopes, the seismic stuff you guys have done. It's all available for people to see, and I think that really does build trust, even if people don't understand all of the technical stuff that they're looking at.
Right.
The fact that you're making it available means you want them to look at it and trust what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, look, in additional to that is we have a huge opportunity here to use the technology for community engagement. Where
Yeah.
community members can have a much better understanding about the mining project's infrastructure and the
Hmm.
controls that are going to be in place to prevent environmental and social impact. So you can give those community members VR tours of the project, and that will definitely provide another level of understanding about what's going to happen.
Absolutely. And so one last question before we switch over to the tour that everyone will listen and watch. If you could, wave a magic wand and have technology facilitate something new that you can't do right now in this VR space, what would it be? What would you make happen tomorrow?
That's a hard one, Emily, because we can do anything we want in VR, and
Yeah.
that's the beauty of it. The developer that works with us in Kitware, Ken Martin, is a wizard, and the stuff that they come up with are, there has been nothing so far that we have not thought of that they were not able to implement. So I do believe that the limit here is our imagination. Now,
Mm.
if you think about the technology that I want to see, and perhaps it could be a real time feed into VR, I would like to measure grade as we drill. That's the
Ah,
next
yeah.
technological advancement that's going to really change how we explore and where and how fast we can explore.
Awesome. And I would really recommend to folks that they listen through to the end because you provide some really good insight onto why exploration is a really good buy within Newmont, right? And how efficient you are with your exploration money and what that looks like when it comes to getting gold out of the ground. And I could only imagine if you could do something like that, what that would look like as well. So. Well, great. Well, cheers to your iced tea, Marcelo, and
Cheers.
thanks for joining us on the rocks and coming up next in the rocks with the virtual reality tour. I
Thank you very
appreciate it.
much. So welcome, Emily, to the Tanami Desert. We are in Aboriginal freehold land, and before we start, I just would like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we operate and explore, the Walpiri people, and we pay our respects to their elders, present, past, and emerging. This Tanami operations are located in the Australian Northern Territory, as you know, and is considered the most remote mine in Australia. It's located about 500 km of Alice Springs. Gold was first discovered here in the 1900s by Alan Davidson, who was prospecting by camel at the time. Small-scale mining was carried out for the next 60 years, but operations were constrained due to shortage of water and the isolation of the site. Modern exploration started again in 1983. Due to Operation Remote Location, we have established a full standalone infrastructure here. So the granites include the processing plant, the power station, tailings storage facility, airstrip, and the camp. And the DBS area includes the facilities to support the underground mine, like power station, fuel facilities, workshops, warehouse, and offices. Obviously, Tanamai is a fly-in, fly-out operation. Why don't we just go ahead and move into the head frame over here? So the importance of the head frame is that we have reached the depth of about 1 mile of underground vertically. And, traditionally, you need to transition into a shaft for an underground mine at about 600 meters of depth. In this case, we have 1.6 Ks. And we are making the transition right now. So the shaft that you are seeing here, the head frame, is being built as we speak, and is going to allow mining below 1 mile of depth. So if you can put your controls up, we can just slide down and go underground. Okay. So you see the shaft infrastructure here, Emily, coming all the way.
Yep.
Some drill stations, and then keep going down to 1,600 meters.
Come join you. I think this might be the first time we're filming on the rocks, actually in the rocks. Definitely in virtual reality.
Definitely in the rocks, no doubt. So what you see in gray are the infrastructure of the mine, and as you can feel right now, your scale is the giant. So we are pretty big. We're probably 10 or 10 times the size of a normal human, or even more. And that's one of the key advantages of VR for us, that you can switch between looking at the whole deposit to individually touring parts of the deposit in real world scale. And that gives you a perspective that is unique to these types of environments.
So Marcelo, for folks that are watching this, the gray that we see is the infrastructure, the tunnels for the mine, right?
Yep.
What are all the brightly colored discs that we're looking at right now?
Those are what we call the significant intervals. So these are the intervals with the highest grade that we have. So soon we are going to probe some of this, and you can be able to see exactly what grade you have in each one of those. Obviously, the blue lines, the blue traces are drill holes that have been drilled so far at this mine. As you can see, we have done quite a lot of it.
Yeah, it just really communicates the huge amount of drilling that you all have done to build this mine, looking all the way up towards the surface at the surface mine, and then coming down. People, I think of big mines and they just think of the big open pit, but not all of the data that goes below it.
And actually, to this, at the moment, it takes about 1 hour for a truck to drive all the way from the surface to the bottom of the mine. It's quite a trip.
The shaft? How long does it take to get to the bottom of the shaft?
Well, the shaft is not ready yet, but the trip is going to be about 20 minutes, I would say. So we'll move to the next station. And what you see here, and we have a poster here with some data about Tanamai, but just to describe to you what you're seeing here, we have 4 colors here in the shapes that you're seeing. We see the gray color, which are the mined out stopes. Mm-hmm. And then you have the
planned stopes. And the planned stopes you see in 4 different colors here. The one in gold is what is currently declared as reserves. We have 5.9, approximately 5.9 million ounces of gold declared in reserves here at the moment. This mine produces an average of 500,000 ounces per year. So you can see we have quite a long time of life here only in reserves. And you add to that the stopes that are dark blue. It's 1.49, 1.5 million ounces in resources there waiting to be converted to reserves, giving more drilling. And we have 2.71 million ounces of inferred resources also waiting to be converted into indicated.
And Marcelo, how do you use VR with these types of tools? Like, I'm sure it's a huge collaboration tool for your team when they're looking at future planning.
Look, the way the latest development has been the most exciting one, in my opinion, which is the multiplayer functionality. It's exactly what we're experiencing right now. It's this ability for us to be together, talking, looking at the same data. And really, the key work that we have been doing is mapping, is reviewing models, and reviewing drilling, results of drilling. You can, together as a team, spread all over the world, you can have these meetings now inside the model, which completely changed the way we talk about the model, because the model is such an abstract concept. If you don't have it in front of you, everyone has one view, and they are always different. So here we bring everyone together, and now we can talk about something, inside it. So you can interrogate the model in different ways inside of the environment, and that way just have conversations.
Yeah, I know as a geologist and having worked with a lot of other geologists, what's the saying? If you have 2 geologists in a room, you'll have 3 opinions.
Absolutely.
about what's going on. So I can imagine that being able to work in this environment at least keeps you to those 3 opinions.
Right. So let's take a flight to that deposit and take a look at some of the stopes.
It's just so cool to be able to fly around in here.
Yeah, and you can see the light blue stopes. Those stopes are the ones that are not yet in the category of resources. They would be pre-resource, ready to be converted. That area that you see here to the right, to your left actually, now behind you, is is Federation. This was a discovery we made a few years ago, and the Liberator, the one just down below where you see the tag there for Liberator, that is our latest discovery here in the Tanami. Here, the mineralization here in the Tanami is really an intersection of some specific stratigraphic beds with fault corridors, and this has been controls this type of mineralization in this deposit. We have identified that there is these bodies that you see, the main Cali and Oron. Oron is below Cali, and then Federation and the Liberator to the left.
Okay.
And obviously, as you can see, as you go down the mine, we are going from the golden color to the blue, dark blue, light blue, and white, because that's the level of confidence. Estimation confidence that we have at the moment. And really the shaft is going to allow us to drill all that stuff that's down here that is not yet in the category of reserves. At the moment, we cannot drill there because of the shaft construction. So there is a lot of competition for air inside the mine right now. And obviously the operations and the project that's building the shaft have priority. But we should be going back to exploration down at Tanami as soon as the shaft is up and running.
And just for scale again, Marcelo, the shaft will be how deep?
1.6 Ks, yes. It's a pretty deep shaft.
I mean, but just seeing that in the model and seeing the shaft in the background and then looking at how far down to Oron, I mean, you really get an idea of the sheer potential size of the whole area.
Right.
So we'll move to another location. Take a look at the grades. What you see now is actual blocks from the block model, and you have two different colors. The dark red is grades above 5 grams, and the light red are grades between 4 and 5 grams.
So you've got really high grades then through this whole deposit. You must wish that you could bring all of your shareholders into this model, because it just communicates so well all of the work that you're doing.
Absolutely. And it's been a great tool for that, to communicate, to showcase our operations and projects to board members, to analysts and investors.
Yeah. And I mean, just looking at the grades, also you just see how consistent they are throughout the deposit. Really,
and that's a key thing that VR and especially advanced visualization can bring to the table, right? This ability of everybody looking at the same information and being very transparent about what is in the mind. One of the key characteristics for us, as you know, is continuity. It's continuity of the mineralization. And here you can really appreciate that in a way that you can never do on a spreadsheet.
Yeah, and I think also people talk a lot about transparency, but equally important is accessibility, because you can give people a lot of data, as you mentioned, in a spreadsheet and all kinds of different methods. But if you make the data accessible to people in this manner where they can really see it and feel like they're in the mine, it makes such a big difference.
Absolutely. So I'll move to another station. All right, Emily, now we are seeing those drill hole traces with the significant intervals. And Richard, can you explain us how did you set up those significant intervals?
Yeah, the significant intervals are an economic composite calculated at 0.5 gram per ton, which are the green colors you might be able to make out. Then between 1 and 2 grams per ton is yellow, 2 and 4 is orange, between 4 and 8 is red, and the magenta is above 8 grams per ton. And the size of the cylinder is the grade times the thickness, or gram meters. So if the cylinder is a 10 meter diameter, it has 100 gram meters in that interval.
One of the things that really jumps out, Richard and Marcelo, is the amount of magenta and red in the model. You can really see how much high grade you have.
Yeah, we mine average stopes of 6 grams in this mine, so it's a pretty good grade.
Yeah.
So why don't we go down there and take a look at some core? It's just at the very bottom of the mine. Let's go.
And about how far below the surface are we down here at Oron?
This is about 2 kilometers below the surface. I'm going to bring you guys to where I am. And I'm going to probe a drill hole.
Very cool.
So you
now
can
we're looking
see
at a picture of the actual drill core that came out of right where we were looking.
Exactly. And you can see this particular intercept is 20 meters at 7.28 grams per ton for 103 gram meters. So it's that red one. It's not our best intercept, but still pretty good.
And I would imagine as a collaboration tool, it's one thing to have multiple team members looking at the same model, but for them to be able to actually look at the drill core together and talk about their interpretation or what they think is going on must be really advantageous.
Yeah, well, if you get 5 geologists, you get 6 interpretations.
Exactly.
So
And then,
that's
and what do you think that means for what Newmont is doing for, I think what you've called before, the drill, the core shed of the future?
yeah. Well, basically today we do all our logging at site, and some of these remote sites, they are very expensive to keep people there. We have safety concerns, and with the pandemic, even worse, was very difficult to keep non-critical personnel on site. So the core shed of the future is a concept we have been developing, which basically uses a quarter of the footprint of a normal traditional core shed, and it's really focused on acquiring high quality imagery, hyperspectral in the visual spectrum, and use some machine learning on the top of that to identify, to do grain counting and fault identification, these types of things, and provide this information to a geologist remotely so that geologist is able to log remotely. So this geologist is going to have more information than they have today to make a log, to log core in the company. And it will be able to do all the work remotely. And that means that we are going to have less people in the camp, and we are going to be much more efficient on the way we log.
And I think that
Yeah.
a side benefit of integrating technology in that way is you also open up the door for a more diverse workforce. Maybe people that wouldn't be attracted to working in that remote location, fly in, fly out. You end up attracting a whole bunch of new people who really like the idea of that high-tech job.
Exactly. So we'll go to the next one, Richard.
Yeah.
So what you see here is the seismic cube. The seismic cube is a model that was really finalized at the end of 19, beginning of 20, and it's the first time we have successfully developed a seismic model for a hard rock mine, which you can actually use it. One of the biggest motivations to fund this project was the shaft project itself, because this type of information can provide lots of insights into the rock mass characteristics. And we were able to map structures around the shaft to make it a safe and efficient operation. And also there has the added use of exploration, where we can correlate this reflectivity data with the mineralization, and not only extend the ore body in areas where we know, but find other discoveries, find other ore bodies in areas that we don't have a clue a deposit may be there. So it's a very exciting type of information. And this is the first mine we have developed that type of data.
And Marcelo, I know for myself, when I hear seismic data, I think oil and gas, not mining, right?
Right.
So how is it working with this deposit where in other locations it wouldn't be as effective?
It's correct. It really depends on the contrast you can see for the different rock types, and you know, in an oil and gas environment, in a sedimentary basin like the ones they use, you have a lot less complexity, geological complexity, a lot, and so it's a lot easier to interpret your results. But you know, what's making the difference is not it's the sheer size of the. I mean, we use 22,000 geophones to capture this information. So now we are starting to get a lot of data, and with modern data processing technologies, we are able to remove a lot more the noise out of that signal than ever before. So we are starting to see much clearer pictures. And, it's working very well for us here at Tanami and may very well work at other sites. But will depend on the rock characteristics and the geological setting in general.
Yeah, I mean, in general, better for sedimentary deposits, of course, not like you had mentioned previously, a porphyry, for example.
Exactly.
It's really cool. I mean, and it's huge. You can really see, I mean, looking, I guess, to the south. I mean, how much data you collected to the south of where the stopes are right now.
Right. And this is just a piece of it. If you keep going down, you'll see that this is just the upper section of the cube. We are not even close to the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that north arrow is 500 meters long for scale.
Wow. It's huge. Very cool.
Okay, so we'll move to the last station.
Mm-hmm.
So what you see here, Emily, is the tenement, the land package we have at the Tanami, and that's the brown shaded area that you see there. Also, the colors you see are soil samples. So it's a model that has been interpolated from soil samples. And you can see the hot spots where the anomalies are obviously where the mine is, around the head frame. We have the granites area, which is another hot spot where the processing plant is and where the legacy historic mining was done in the past. So you see there are undergrounds and open pits around the granites area as well. And that's consistent with the anomalies that we see there. And another interesting anomaly that you see here to my left is Oberon. Oberon is an open pit project that it's in pre-feasibility phase right now. And we believe it's going to be the next mine in the Tanami.
Very cool. And when I'm looking at the colors and the red zones around Oberon, what does the red actually signify? Is it a specific geochemical signature?
A great question, Emily. This is really what we call scores. So they are DSG scores. DSG stands for Deep Sensing Geochemistry, which is the technology Newmont has for soil geochemistry.
So it takes it all into consideration and puts the X on the treasure map for you. Gold found
Exactly.
here.
Yep. The end of the rainbow.
Yeah. When what really stands out is in addition to the existing mine area and Oberon, I mean, you see a lot of red. I mean, all around the tenement area. I mean, so that just looks like there's so much potential even outside of those high priority areas.
Yeah, actually, one of the biggest problems we have here, Emily, is prioritize the drilling, because we have so much targets to go that we really need to think through what targets we should invest first.
Well, and I wonder, Marcelo, if you could explain to me, with the sheer amount of money that's been invested in drilling out this area, but there's a key statistic I know that you look to evaluate the efficiency of adding value through exploration. If you could walk me through that.
Absolutely. Look, the way we measure our exploration cost is through a metric called all-inclusive reserve conversion cost, which takes in consideration everything we have spent in the exploration function, divided by the number of ounces that we delivered in reserves. Because, it's hard to measure this because you are converting every day, you are converting resources, inferred to indicated to measure, and also making the reserve estimation as well. So it becomes very hard to measure individual costs, but any company can produce the total cost of reserve addition by getting all the money you put into exploration divided by the number of ounces. We sit around $40 to $50 an ounce. So that's
Wow.
how much it costs to bring 1 ounce of reserves into the Newmont portfolio.
And that's a lot more efficient than going through acquisition, right?
That's a lot more efficient. Our estimate is that when an acquisition, you are paying between $250 to even $350 an ounce in the case of an acquisition. So there is a very strong case for exploration if you can bring those ounces to the portfolio.
Well, Richard and Marcelo, what kind of software are you using to do all of this cool work?
So in this case, we've partnered with a company called Kitware, and they develop a software called ParaView, which is actually open source, so it's freely available to anyone. It's the first time that Newmont's partaken in such an open source development as this. So it's been quite successful since we started in 2016. The important thing about the software is that it's actually a scientific software, so it's used to big data and visualizing large data sets, and it's quite collaborative in funding from all sorts of different places, the US government, some French organizations all around the globe. And the other great thing about it is that it's across many industries. So there's medical applications, you can put your car in a virtual wind tunnel and things like that.
Do you think there are any unique challenges with big data specific to the mining industry?
I think one of the big challenges,
I
think one of the big challenges is access to data. There's a lot of proprietary software in the mining industry, and we need to encourage all vendors to make their API available, or at least the data available, so that we can visualize it in any system and do analytics on it.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for giving me this tour in virtual reality. I think this is the first time we've done On the Rocks in the rocks, or at least virtually. So I look forward to seeing you guys in person soon.
All right. Nice to see you.
Thank you to our guest and my colleague Marcelo Godoy for joining us on this episode of On the Rocks. To learn more about Marcelo and Newmont, visit newmont.com and check them out on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. For more about Prospector, go to prospectorportal.com or check us out on Instagram at ProspectorAI and LinkedIn at ProspectorPortal. Thanks for joining us on the Rocks. Until next time, keep your glasses full and your ice cold. Cheers.